All right, welcome back to video number 3 in our video series. Today, we're going to cover level 5 of our AI maturity model, which I'm sharing on the screen, which is AI data preparation. So, in the first couple of videos, we covered levels 1 through 4, which is the AI foundation. So, if you were doing this at your organization up to this point, you would have identified and assigned ownership to core processes, process map them so you understand how they actually happen, define KPIs, build some reporting and measurement systems, built a data dictionary, standardized best practices, and memorialize those with standard operating procedures. You should have pretty efficient, effective processes inside of your organization. So this is the point where, as an organization, you have to really decide what you're trying to accomplish with AI, right? Um, so I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to use LLMs, large language models like ChatGPT, Claude, etc., as an example to conceptualize it. Now, LLMs are not the only type of AI that we're talking about when we do this. It's not exclusively LLMs, but just it's probably the thing that people are interacting with most oftenly right now, and is probably the easiest to conceptualize, right? So once you've got to this point. And up to this point, the usage of AI has been basically ad hoc usage from business stakeholders, like individual people going out and using Claude to work on Power BI dashboards, or using ChatGPT to help them write emails or write SOPs or whatever, right? And there might be a couple of tactical low budget AI solutions like tools that can automate SOP creation or things like that, right? But for the most part, it's been this kind of ad hoc usage. Um, a lot of organizations want to do things like, i.e., have a chatbot that responds to customer inquiries, right? That runs on an LLM. That is a more advanced use case that would probably fall in our level 6 automation level, if not level 7 or 8 in our AI maturity model. And so, question is, how do you get there, right? Because you can't just say that you're going to do that, right? You couldn't just go get ChatGPT and set it up as a chatbot for you and have it successfully respond to customer inquiries. It needs context, right? It needs to understand your business, your processes, your products and services, how you serve customers, the nature of a customer's account. There's a lot of context that the model needs in order to be able to do that effectively, right? So this is where our data architecture comes in. This is the point, I'm just going to tell you, where a lot of business leaders will get scared off. Gartner projects that 90% of Gen AI projects in 2025 will stall due to cost and complexity, right? A lot of people are going to set out to do this, and 9 in 10 are going to stop because it's too complex and it costs too much, right? But the 10% who do it, who commit to it, and who have an intelligent plan for it will be, in 2 years, extremely far ahead of their competitors who do not, because they will then be in a position to have real value from AI. They will be achieving it on a daily basis, and their competitors will not only be behind that, but they'll be a 1.5, 2 year data architecture project away from even being able to start that exercise, right? And so this is where you're going to have to make a decision as a business leader. Do we really want to go down this path? I think you should, right? I'm biased because I think this stuff is fascinating, but I think it's going to change the way we work pretty much in an industry agnostic manner. And those who are early adopters right now and who set themselves up for success are going to be a long ways ahead of their competition in a few years. That's what I believe, right? You don't have to agree with me, but that's what I think. But if you are in that camp and you want to make an investment, this is the point where you have to say, okay, what are we doing, right? Because you have to build an environment that will support the specific use cases that you want to achieve with it, with AI, right? And I'm going to say that again. You have to build an environment that will support the specific use cases that you want to achieve with AI. Why did I say it like that? Well, because you could make a knowledge bank where you just dump all of your information, all your data from your systems. Maybe you have a data warehouse, like whatever, all of your documents, all of those things you dump into a single place. And you let your AI model, um, you let your AI model work on top of that, right? Well, A, that would still be a lot of effort, and that is kind of a part of the process. But B, AI engineers, people who are working on AI projects, it's estimated that they're going to spend 50% of their time. There's a really good article about this that I'll try to remember to put the link in the chat. I read it on LinkedIn, but 50% of their time is going to be spent just structuring, cleaning, and validating data, right? Because just dumping it is not enough. You have to have the data in a structure to be consumable and understandable by the LLM, right? So there is what is called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. So this is a basic method, follows a process of, I'm looking at my notes over here, I apologize for that, but I want to make sure I say this right, follows a process of query processing, information retrieval, integration with LLM, and response generation. So that's the workflow, right? There's a really interesting paper that comes out of that article that I referenced that is written by um, an organization called, I want to tell you because I want to give them credit because it's really solid. It is written by Vertisia, and Vertisia has a really solid take on both basic RAG and then what they call uh, semantic RAG strategy, right? So basic RAG is about having a knowledge bank. I'm going to call it a knowledge bank, but think of it as just a repository for all of your data, documents, all of your information, right? Where the LLM is able to query and retrieve information from that repository from your knowledge bank. And then in our example of a chatbot, you get a customer inquiry, it queries information from the knowledge bank, it integrates that with the LLM, it examines the input from the customer, and then it generates a response, right? So that process is pretty good. It can be pretty good, right? But the problem is, especially as you grow, you have more information in your knowledge bank, you scale, and you have multiple AI use cases. There is specific content needed. So if you have a customer success chatbot that responds to customers, but you also have an employee training chatbot that helps employ and train employees on their roles, like you don't want them necessarily drawing on the same context, right? And that's where you evolve into a semantic RAG strategy. So semantic RAG strategy, as outlined by Artesia, is that what I said their name was? I haven't actually heard of them before, Vertesia, but I think it's a really solid paper and you should check it out. But with the semantic RAG strategy, it's like if you think about like if you worked in Power BI or you think about even like a master data model concept and data architecture, it's about creating intentional semantic structures that contextualize information for specific use cases in the LLM, right? So you might create a semantic layer that is specific inside of your knowledge bank to customer response chatbots for tier one, right? So tier one escalations that are done by the chatbot would have a very specific context that they're getting every time, which would make them more accurate and more effective. And then the same thing would be true for like your employee training bot, right? And all the other use cases that you have. But to do that is a long process, right? Because first you have to set out and you have to build in architecture. And that might involve building a data warehouse or something like that so that you structure all of your database type data in a certain way. And then it might involve creating a series of folder structures and specific document types where you compile all of your documents into a single repository structured in a very specific way. And then it might involve taking certain types of documents, extracting data out of them and putting them into a more structured environment or joining them with other data sources, right? That's that structuring and cleansing activity, right? That alone is a monumental effort. And then the next piece is building those semantic layers on top of it based on what you want to do, what semantic context you want to give based on the specific use cases that you're going to have, right? And so it's a significant investment. It's a significantly long process. And you have to start out from the beginning with an intelligent design for what you want to accomplish, right? So those are all challenging aspects, which is why I say it requires a significant amount of investment to advance. Now, we'll have more videos and content on some of these more complex topics. Um, this is a really emerging and evolving industry. We read a lot. We try to stay up to date with it. Our own thoughts on this change regularly because it's changing so rapidly, right? But we're going to continue to put up content to help contextualize this. But in simple terms, you have to build a data architecture and knowledge bank structure that will support giving the right context to your AI agents for every use case that you want to execute. Now, that doesn't mean you have to think of every use case you're ever going to use right out of the gate, but you need to know the specific highest value targets that you're driving towards immediately so that you can build a structure that supports those use cases. You shouldn't just blindly start out building something without a vision for what the end product should look like, right? So there's a significant investment in the data architecture. In addition to that, there's a lot of risk that comes along with implementing all of these things, right? And I don't mean risk like iRobot, robots are going to take over the world. I mean risk like LLMs are programmed to give an answer. And if they don't know, they will give the most probable answer based on what they do know. That probable answer will likely still be wrong if they don't have the proper context, right? So if you have a chatbot that responds to customer inquiries, you can't have it tell customers bad information because you didn't give it appropriate context, right? So you need to identify all the risks that exist. And then you need controls in place to mitigate, monitor, and manage those risks in an effective manner. A lot of times this is done through a risk and controls catalog. So while you're building your data architecture, you need to be building out your risk environment. And you should also be, during this phase of maturity, building training and content around training for all the artifacts like SOPs, etc., that you created in the first 4 levels, because those are going to not only help train your staff better, but they're going to become important contextual assets for your AI agents that you're going to try to create later, right? So the AI capabilities that are available to you at this level of maturity. One of the biggest ones is technical skill augmentation, right? You're going to need people who know what they're doing, but developers can have their productivity significantly increased by ad hoc integration with AI tools, right? They can really up their skill as developers and builders by pulling and using AI tools to do this, right? In addition to that, AI can help you build content, can help you with a lot of the data enrichment and cleansing activities that you're going to have to do during this process. So there's a lot of application here. Most of it is still ad hoc usage from your tech talent and specific stakeholders. There may be a few tactical solutions like a data cleansing tool or something like that that you could work in right here, but most of it is still ad hoc. And what you're really doing here is you're building for the future, right? This is the step where you make the decision. We are going after this. We are going to invest in it, and we are going to build an environment that will support the future use cases that we want to achieve in AI. I think if you make that decision in a couple years, you're going to look back and be really glad that you did because you'll be a long way ahead of your competitors that didn't. But but it is a decision, and it's not cheap and it's not easy, right? So it's something that you've got to know that you want to do, build into your strategic plan, build into your budget, and execute on it, right? So um, we're going to dive into a lot of these concepts in more detail. We'll put out some more content, but conceptually, um, if you remember anything about level 5, like this is the point where you have to make the decision on what you want to build, right? And if you're committed to trying to integrate these technologies into your business, you have to start building and advancing the environment to be able to do so, right? So we'll be back with the next video in the series to cover level 6. Level 6 will be about once you've kind of built this data architecture foundation, automation. How do you start to automate processes and start to work in those AI solutions into your day to day? So we'll be back to talk about that. I hope this was informative and I didn't word bumble it too much. There's a lot of stuff that I wanted to do, but again, shout out to Vertija for the good paper. Also, the paper came from an article on LinkedIn that I shared on my personal LinkedIn, but I'll try to put the link in the comments of this video too. But really appreciate you guys, and we'll chat later.